What's the big old deal, man? It's your boy Fast Traffic Records out the mud. Shout out to Orr Park, dopest reactions in America. And today we're going to be reacting to this P. Diddy's lawyer quits the case mid bombshell. You know what I'm saying? P. Diddy's lawyer quit the sex trafficking case mid case. So we're going to see what's going on with this. It does not look good for Diddy, as it never does. You feel me? Let's check it out, man. I ain't seen it yet, so we're going to watch this together. Pew.
A huge blow to Diddy's defense team just 3 months before his high-profile trial is expected to start.
On Friday, a surprising announcement came down. One of his defense attorneys suddenly quits the case. I'm Elizabeth Milner with Law and Crime. Now, this particular defense attorney's reason for quitting wasn't really a reason at all, making his departure a lot more puzzling.
Shortly after Diddy's arrest, his defense team grew when he stacked on 2 more defense attorneys to join Mark Agnifilo and Tinny Garagos at the defense table. Now,
you know it's bad news when you gotta hire on 3 defense attorneys. Like, one wasn't enough. Back in the day, you used to hire Johnny Cochran or something and get off with murder. This guy's like, nah, I need all 3 of y'all.
Now, the 2 that joined at the time were high-profile attorney Alexandra Shapiro, whose client Sam Bankman-Fried actually shared a unit at the detention center with Diddy, and high-profile death penalty attorney Anthony Rico. Now, while the pair joined around the same time, Anthony, in a court filing on Friday, said he's leaving the case. In the filing, Anthony Rico said, quote, "For the reasons set forth below, this motion for withdrawals is filed so that Sean Combs may move forward with his defense and to commence jury selection and trial without any delay. As a result of discussion with lead counsel Mark Agnifilo, this motion for withdrawal of counsel is filed. While I am aware that the local rule requires that an application for withdrawal of counsel is supported and granted, there are sufficient reasons related to protections afforded by the attorney-client privilege for brevity in my application for withdrawal as counsel in this case. Although I have provided Sean Combs with the high level of legal representation expected by the court, under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel for Sean Combs," end quote. Now, essentially in legalese, I quit, but I can't go into details because
he talking about, I'm done, no way I'm coming back, under zero circumstance can I get hired back on this case. He don't want this shit to affect his credibility in the community. He don't want it to affect him in future attorney situations. If he fails this major case, he'll never get hired again. You know what I'm saying? Kind of goes without, it makes it look like he don't think he's gonna win
because of attorney-client privilege. According to the filing, though, the defense shakeup won't delay the case. Diddy will continue with 5 attorneys. That's Mark Agnifilo, Tinny Garagos, Alexandra Shapiro, Jason A. Driscoll, and Anna Esteval. Now, a judge still has to sign off on the motion, but with the government taking no position on it and the fact Anthony Rico spoke with Mark Agnifilo about it before filing the motion, a judge will likely sign off on it. Now, as I mentioned, Anthony Rico is a very well-established death penalty attorney and was lead defense in up to 45 federal death penalty cases. His bio on the Fordham Law University website says some of the notable yet controversial cases included Anthony Rico serving on the counsel in the World Trade bombing conspiracy case and embassy bombing in 1998. And he stays busy. He also doubles as an adjunct professor of law at Fordham and has been practicing law since 1982. As for Diddy himself, as many of us know, he's been locked up on charges of federal sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, that last charge I mentioned, i.e. count 3 in his indictment, transportation to engage in prostitution, well, Diddy's lawyers are wanting that charge thrown out, citing it's from a racist law. Just days before Anthony Rico filed a motion to withdraw from Diddy's counsel, Diddy's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss that charge because they argue no white person has ever been the target of a remotely similar prosecution. So that...
Now, that rings true, and that's bananas. If it is true, that's crazy. They're like, why are you trying to throw the book at this black mogul, legend, icon, millionaire, etc., when we pretty much know the majority of powerful white people have used prostitutes or tricked off in some sense. They're probably guilty of something similar, maybe not at this crazy like Michael Jackson, R. Kelly, Diddy level, but they could have still been in there. So it's like, why do you get for everything and not get the white people? You know what I'm saying? Why do you get all the black people for the shit? You know what I'm trying to say.
Charge is known as the Mann Act, which was previously named by Congress as the White Slave Traffic Act.
There goes that hypnotizing suit again. He's like, look at me. Look at these lines and patterns and don't think about what you're feeling inside.
which made it illegal to transport people across state or international lines for the purpose of prostitution. Here's the thing. Diddy's lawyer says the law has a...
I'm sorry, that coat is like a magician coat. He's like, watch what I'm about to do.
Has a history of racial bias. Diddy's defense seems to be gearing up toward his alleged criminal conduct wasn't criminal. It was his personal business of what was going on in his bedrooms or hotels or wherever the freak-offs occurred. So they're saying that count 3 wasn't transportation to engage in prostitution.
Look at Diddy right there. He looking like he was 18. Fuck was you in court for back then?
But was just him using escorts, male escorts at that, to bring in as a third with his girlfriends. Whereas the government's theory of the case is Diddy used force, fraud, and coercion to make his alleged victims have sex against their will in his freak-offs that he recorded for his own pleasure. Now
that's crazy. If any of that is true, who has ever been accused of forcing people to do it for your own pleasure, like other than Grape? You just trying to watch? You're like, yeah, we bringing these guys in because I want to see you do it with them. I'm surprised him and Adam 22 don't have something going on the plug talk. You know what I'm saying? It sounds like the plug talk type of shit.
Sure. Now, Diddy pleaded not guilty to all his charges, hence why the case is going to trial. And that trial is set.
Seems like problems that Diddy could have avoided by just working with Adam 22 and Lena. You ain't got to force nobody over there. They got plug talk, got all the people getting their booties plugged.
Is set for less than 3 months from now.
And talking about it.
Now, despite being locked up for 5 months, Diddy's case continues to make headlines, not just from the federal trial, but also the dozens of civil lawsuits he still faces. But Diddy scored some wins behind bars. One of his civil lawsuits accusing him of raping a 13-year-old with Jay-Z back in 2000 was dismissed.
Why they show that picture of them? It's like they're looking at a picture of a young broad like, no titties.
Dismissed after the accuser dropped her lawsuit against the two moguls. Now, both vehemently denied the allegation, and Jay-Z, for his part, took it a step further and sued the accuser's attorney, Tony Busby, for extortion. However, despite that being dismissed, Diddy still faces a number of civil suits, even from accusers whose lawyer isn't Tony Busby. As for Diddy's federal criminal case, the stakes are high. He's facing a minimum of 15 years in prison, but a maximum of life behind bars.
Let's break
a minimum of 15 years. This might really be no Diddy.
Down the latest defense team shakeup with attorney and former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. Nima, it's always quitting.
Hold up, 15 years? Do you realize that if he goes down for 15 years, this will mean no Diddy?
Quitting the defense team, and how significant is it, being that Diddy's 3 months away from trial?
Elizabeth, it is significant.
Oh, it's significant.
And it's tough to know the...
Anything that happens when you're 3 months away from trial is significant. That's enough time for people like us to do reactions, blogs to get talking, Instagram to get to talking, the world to get to thinking a certain way. And next thing you know, the court is forced to push things in a certain direction because otherwise they just look like shysters.
Elizabeth, it is significant, and it's tough to know the reason why. It could be any number of possibilities. Sometimes it's when the lawyer hasn't been paid, but we know obviously Diddy doesn't have that problem. He's got plenty of money. It could be a disagreement regarding defense strategy. It could be a conflict. It could be a health issue. It really could be anything, and the paperwork doesn't identify it, nor should it. And the fact that Mark Agnifilo is still on the case and the other counsel of record leads me to believe that the judge is going to rubber stamp this motion and grant it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was kind of surprised, like you were too, because even being inside the courtroom and throughout Diddy's hearings, you would see Diddy and Anthony kind of speaking to one another. He would always pass him notes while Mark Agnifilo made the arguments. Diddy and Anthony Rico would exchange hugs with one another. Anthony Rico always even made it a point to tell the judge Diddy's family traveled all the way to New York for his hearings. With all of that being said, kind of going back to what potentially the reasoning might be, do you think that it might have been a personal conflict between Diddy and...
They're making it a point to say his family traveled all the way to New York. Don't they live in Miami? It's on the East Coast.
Diddy and Anthony Rico, or do you think it might have been Anthony Rico with other counsel? But what do you make of all of that?
Potentially, it could be a conflict with the client, right? A disagreement. They just don't get along. The communication is poor. They don't agree on defense strategy. It could be a conflict with one of the other lawyers. Obviously, seems like Agnifilo is the lead on this case, although Rico was certainly his 1B. And I know obviously there's other lawyers on the case. Obviously, a lot of the victims are female. They're going to want female lawyers on the defense team, especially during some.
Obviously, a lot of the victims are females. Look, when you're in sexual harassment, rape, pedophile, these type of accusations, you want them all of the victims to be female. When even one of them is a male, it's getting a little creepy, man. That's where the No Diddy came into No Diddy. That's where that came from, because they're not just female victims.
Some of the aggressive cross-examination that tends to be the conventional wisdom when you're dealing with victims who are alleged victims of sexual assault or abuse. And then it could be a conflict with one of the victims themselves. Maybe Agnifilo, maybe Rico consulted with them or even represented them. And so
Diddy always had a smile like a dolphin. Look at him go. It's a lot easier to hate on that dolphin smile when you know that's really a shit-eating grin. You know what I'm saying?
Such a way that he has to get off the case. So it could be any number of potential conflicts.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, kind of just looking at the motion to withdraw too, like you had mentioned before, not much reasoning given. Anthony Rico wrote, there are sufficient reasons related to the protections afforded by attorney-client privilege for brevity in my application for withdrawal as counsel in this case. Although I've provided Sean Combs with the high level of legal representation expected by the court, under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel. Five other attorneys will remain on record. What do you make of just that? It felt like he was saying a lot, but then not at all much at the same time.
Well, when you withdraw,
hey, anytime somebody says a lot without seeming to say much, it's usually an admission of guilt, because they're trying to put a bunch of facts out there so that it seems like they know what they're talking about, so that it seems like they're trying to give you the truth. But the fact that they didn't give you much truth tells you it's like, okay, he said all that to say nothing. It's like a defense. You know what I'm saying? Don't let that go over your beanie. Telling the truth, getting to the point is quick. Lying, you got to say all this other shit. Well, we were over here. Well, how could I have killed him? Well, who would have been watching my baby? Who would have watched my baby if I was killing him? Nobody gave a fuck who was watching the baby. They know you killed him because your cell phone was over here pinging. We're not worried about the fact that you're saying you was with your baby. Don't let it go over your beanie. I watch a lot of First 48.
For homicide detectives.
Really, you still need to protect the client and the confidences, so you don't want to say something that may jeopardize him or the case. And you also need leave or permission of the judge. So you want to provide enough so the judge knows that you're not leaving the client high and dry, but you don't want to provide too much that may compromise defense strategy or a weakness in the case or some other issue that would hurt the client. So
now there's always this point too. You know me, I'm quick to blurt out my opinion before I even hear all the facts, but that's why we doing reactions. I'm not just giving you something that I studied and Googled first. I might learn something. I might be right. I might be wrong. What y'all think? Leave it in the comments. Is Traffic a dumbass, or is he just opinionated?
Client. So it is a delicate balancing test. But again, when you have so many others still on the case, I don't expect there to be an issue here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I know we've spoken a number of times about the terms of Diddy's defense strategy and what it kind of feels like possibly once trial comes. And it seems like they're kind of going for, there was no force, there was no fraud, there was no coercion, that the freak-offs were consensual, there was no sex trafficking. Do you think they have something else up their sleeve, or do you think that the defense will kind of remain going forward that, all of this alleged bad acts were consensual and it was just a relationship between two parties? It ended sourly, but yet they, brought in escorts, and that kind of speaks to a little bit of that transportation to engage in prostitution charge. But what do you just make of the defense strategy that we've been seeing so far right now?
Look, I understand how it's easy to make a celebrity look guilty when there's so many things about them that to a regular person would look guilty, but you've been giving them a pass with this. Like people that frequently have multi-million-dollar parties with females that are willing to jump through a window naked because they want to have clout, they want to have money. They want to be close to somebody. They want to be the freakiest wet t-shirt contest, booty shaking contest, etc., etc. These girls are willing to go completely mind numb for these celebrities because it can change their life. It can, if they get chose or the clout. So you got to understand, you already know how trashy women especially behave when it comes to being around celebrities. They will leave their husband of 40 years if it means they can fuck with, you know what I'm saying, a Diddy and things like that. So once you sever a relationship or have bad blood with somebody who you know is a baller, now you got all these things on your mind that you could, you know, paint pictures and show photos and private videos that y'all had when he trusted you. But you was part of this freak off shit. So I understand that. But when you see the footage of him beating that chick Cassie's ass up and down that hallway, it makes me see through a lot of bullshit and read between the lines. You could imagine if that's what he was willing to do on security camera in basically public, imagine what you're doing behind closed doors, and his doors are thick doors. He's got big $1 million doors with long driveways with security and people that are getting paid that are willing to crash out for the clout, for the money. You know what I'm saying? He's protected on that R. Kelly level where people know things where they're like, damn, it's way cheaper to keep these secrets. You feel me?
Been seeing so far right now?
I think it has to be the defense.
And when you that guilty of certain things already, you have to take all of their defense with big grains of salt. Like, you have the 3 best defenders right now. So whatever they're saying is like, yeah, well, these is what the 3 best defenders could come up with. Come on, man. You think the most 3 high-paid defenders at once couldn't come up with some shit that's going to be a little bit swaying of the general dumb public? You know?
The consent, because look, sometimes you can argue that the sexual activity never happened, right? You know, it wasn't me, defense. But this is not your typical,
it wasn't me. Sorry, missing on the sofa. It wasn't me.
not your typical sexual assault case. There are a lot of people there, right? There are people that are arranging the sex workers. There are people that are setting up lights and cameras, booking hotel rooms. Obviously, Diddy has a large entourage. So there's a lot of witnesses there. And a lot of this was allegedly recorded. So I think it's going to be very difficult to argue that it wasn't me. So you're going to have to argue that it was consensual. And
it wasn't me.
About the line that separates sex trafficking from consensual sex. It's that force, fraud, or coercion. So
he was like, yeah, take off your shorts, bro.
I fully expect the defense to be, this was all consensual. These are all people who are trying to shake Diddy down for money. This is all extortion. That's why they're pursuing these claims. They're just piling on.
Now, it's highly possible that most or all of these were people that were consensual at one point. Now they're trying to shake them down or whatnot. It's also highly possible that some of these people were underaged or boys, or that regardless, you did this freaky ass shit and people ain't feeling it.
On, but really, this is regret, not rape. And I think that's the defense strategy in this case.
Regret, not grape. I like that.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you about a motion that was actually filed earlier this week, too, where Diddy's defense wants to dismiss count 3 of the indictment, that being transportation to engage in prostitution. They cite that the Mann Act is racist and that Diddy has been singled out because he's a powerful black man and he's being prosecuted for conduct that regularly goes unpunished. What do you make of that argument?
I got to say one thing. You can believe what you want about who runs this country, what race runs the country, or whatever the fuck. But at the end of the day, if your defense is simply that other people don't get punished for shit that I'm getting punished for, but the shit you're getting punished for is clearly wrong, you can't say, well, how come they got away with it? That's not your problem. That's being a hater. You're supposed to worry about you doing right or wrong. If you just don't do wrong, they can't punish you. You know what I'm saying? If you're not this no Diddy character, nobody can no Diddy you.
Those are very difficult motions to win. So it's essentially a selective prosecution motion. And the example.
Hey, look, nobody turned the no Diddy thing into no Diddy but Diddy. If it weren't for Diddy, there'd be no Diddy. Diddy made it a no Diddy thing. He used to be Sean fucking Combs.
All I always like to give is, let's say you're speeding and a police officer pulls you over. It's not a legal defense to say, well, all these other people were speeding, but you didn't pull them over and ticket them. You have to show that the
You can't be like, that fucking Lambo just soared past us while you was right here. Well, yeah, he didn't catch the Lambo. He caught your stupid ass. That's what I'm talking about. Like, Diddy and all these dumb fucks, you were smart. You were low-key genius enough to get where you're at. And then you did some stupid shit, and now you're where you're at. It's not like you could be like, oh, well, those guys got away with it. They were smarter than you. They were more powerful than you. They got away with it. You know what I'm saying? You know that you got away with certain shit because of your level of power that other people wouldn't have. You know what I'm saying? You know you've done things before that you got away with because of your power. You know? So, why wouldn't you think other people could have more power than you and get away with shit? You know what I'm saying? Whether it's white privilege or Asian privilege or Indian billionaire or whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? It could be a list of things. You're not the king of America, buddy.
Prosecution is for a constitutionally prohibited reason. Obviously, race being one of them. If in the unlikely chance the defense can prove that this was a racially motivated prosecution, that would have a chance of success. Obviously, that's going to be very difficult because there are a lot of victims. I believe that a lot of the victims were also Black victims, men and women. So it's going to be tough to make that argument. But that's why defense attorneys do what they do. Sometimes they throw these Hail Mary motions up there, hoping that maybe something will stick, if not at the trial court, maybe on appeal.
And you mentioned that, a Hail Mary. Why do you think that they waited until a few months before the trial set to begin to file that motion, given that count 3 has been on the indictment since September?
Sometimes you brainstorm, you talk with different appellate lawyers, because when you're defending a case like this, you're not just thinking about the trial court. You're thinking, okay, well, if Combs is convicted, what are the chances on appeal, both to the Second Circuit, which is the Court of Appeal there, and then potentially the Supreme Court? What arguments can we make? Creative arguments. So sometimes the appellate lawyers will come in, and oftentimes they aren't the folks that have anything to do with trying the case. You got your trial lawyers, you got your appellate lawyers. So maybe they come in, they say, hey, I want this motion filed, because if you don't make the motion in the trial court, usually you waive it on appeal, unless it's some clear error that the judge made. So you got to make these motions if you're the defense, if you want to have these same arguments if Combs is convicted.
Yeah, and then of course, Alexandra Shapiro being on Diddy's defense team, a very high profile, high powered appellate lawyer, as well as attorney too. And, even for you, Nima, as a former federal prosecutor.
Hey, unrelated pretty much, but way back in the day, man, if this was before your time, you're going to go watch it. But if you was in my age range in the 30 bracket, the fucking Diddy making the band shit, I thought he was the coolest back then, but I always knew something was weird with him when he made them dudes go walk through to get him a piece of cheesecake. Like, yo.
I want me a piece of cheesecake. Yeah. And y'all can walk from here, get the cheesecake, see the city, enjoy the sights, would you? Do a mean-spirited initiation hazing act to them. It's a bigger picture to it. But I do want some cheesecake.
There was like MTV Cribs, MTV making the band, you know what I'm saying? So if you're willing to belittle these people and embarrass them, grown men on TV, what would you do in behind closed doors for your own enjoyment? Because that was for his own enjoyment. That was not for nobody else. Nobody else really wanted him to do that.
I do think they have a strong enough case. Obviously, if you're the prosecution and you're the government, you love the video evidence, not because it's lurid and, cringeworthy, but your video doesn't lie. So when I have video evidence, I say, well, look, witnesses can lie, victims can lie, defendants certainly lie all the time, but that video doesn't lie. So I love the video evidence. Now, they're reportedly,
although we kind of in an era now where videos do lie, audio lies, video lies. The AI quality is getting so fucking good that some of these filters girls are doing while they're talking to you on videos, like, it is a completely finer bitch. It looks nothing like her, Even me, I could do the shit on Snapchat, make myself look like I got perfect teeth, perfect hair, perfect everything. Make any bitch fall in love. Matter of fact, I'm about to catfish some old people after this and get some people from far away to send me some money.
Reportedly, 100 plus folks who have filed civil lawsuits. You're certainly not going to call all of them. But if I'm the government, I really want to call my best victims. And by best, I mean the ones that are going to be the best witnesses. So obviously we know Cassie Ventura is one of them. She's going to be the star witness in this case. But there's a superseding indictment. They talk about a couple other victims.
Yeah, you can see here, sir, Your Honor, where he was throwing the vase at me in the hallway. This is where he dragged me by my heel. After that, he bit and gnawed on my thigh right outside of the, you know what I'm saying? Here's the scar. I actually tattooed his teeth marks around it just for later.
Some of the physical and sexual violence. So right now what I'm doing is I'm sort of sorting through and saying, okay, well, I don't want to rely just on one victim, but, maybe I want 3, maybe I want 5, somewhere certainly less than 10. You're not going to parade all these victims there. It's cumulative, and it could potentially, you might lose the jury. So you're going to probably pick anywhere from your best 3 to 10 victims, certainly not more than that. Make sure that they're prepared on the stand, because the cross-examination is going to be very aggressive. This is a defense case that's pretty much going to be based on cross-examining the victims and saying that, Cassie was upset because they had broken up and this was a lover's dispute. It wasn't rape or sex trafficking. So that the cross-examination is going to be strong. You want to make sure those victims are prepared.
Absolutely. And of course, the news coming down just this week that Cassie is pregnant with her 3rd child. What do you think that could look like in front of a jury? You have Diddy's defense team probably coming out with that very strong, very aggressive cross-examination. And, come her time to testify, she could be months pregnant.
You bet your bottom dollar it's going to be aggressive.
What do you think that could really look like and how that could translate in front of a jury? I feel like they would have to be pretty delicate there.
No question. And it's not good news for the defense. Everyone loves a pregnant woman. So when you have a pregnant woman on the witness stand,
he's a freak.
Testifying, already there has to be some sensitivity. And that's why, oftentimes, we talked about at the top, that, you'll have females who cross-examine females who are making these types of accusations. Obviously, a recent famous case was Camille Vasquez cross-examining Amber Heard. Sometimes it can be overbearing just from a perception perspective, when you have a man cross-examining a female victim, and then now you have a pregnant female victim. So I would expect that cross-examination to be done by a female lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely. Nima Rahmani, always great to have you on. Always love your insight. I really appreciate it. Before we sign you off, though, my final question to you is, Diddy is a name that makes headlines across the nation, internationally, especially here in New York, too. What do you think, do you think that Diddy can get a fair trial come jury selection?
I think he can, and I think technology has really changed everything. Maybe decades ago, before Law and Crime, you'd have these cases that got a lot of local attention. But now everyone in the world knows who Diddy is. Doesn't matter whether in New York or LA or Miami, where he had homes where some of this activity allegedly happened. Everyone knows who Diddy is. So there's no moving the trial to some other city that folks don't have some sort of preconceived notion about this case.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I remember just during one of his first hearings, there was a tourist coming from Germany, and she even knew who Diddy was. So it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds come May.
It's been another one. Let us know what you think in the comments. All feedback is appreciated, man. It's your boy Fast Traffic Records out the mud. Shout out to KT, Oregon and Park. Dopest reactions in America, and we out this bitch. Pew!